Recording has started.
All right, word. What's up, everybody? I'm Shane Taggart here with my colleague and co-host, TJ Jones. We're bringing you the BTB podcast, where it's going to be primarily, you think behind the back. Well, news for you. We got two bald guys here, former lacrosse players in college, both went to St. Joe's, both played, high school travel ball together for the leading edge elite back in the day. And pretty
much Chris Roy.
Shout out to Chris Roy. Shout out to Mafa. Shout out to Phil Pone, all those guys. But essentially, we just want this podcast to be a spot where, we can talk lacrosse. We can, recap games, preview games, whether it's college, professional, and everything like that. But I know I've been talking for a while. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I know TJ is just, he's a lax rat. He's a junkie. He gets fired up for these things.
Listen, guys, it's going to be a little ugly to start. This is my first time being on a podcast. It's the first time I'm going to be talking in front of a camera in a professional setting. We've got Shane Taggart, the voice of the St. Joseph Hawks, with me. So if I'm going to be the one botching a sentence here and there, give me a break. Let me get my bearings. I know Shane's not going to make a mistake at all. So, look for him as you're a professional in this perspective. But, like Shane mentioned, we're going to give you the insider look from what we thought of from each of these games, being those former players and having that specific insight in some of this stuff. And also, as two gambling guys, we're going to look at it from a bookie perspective. I last week I went through my record on the 2022 season on DraftKings. I'm 46-50. Do we want that to be 50-50? Yeah, we do. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there. This is the hot take though. I'm 5-1 in the NCAA tournament now. So, if you're not on my bandwagon, I don't know what you're doing.
Right. And, especially with things going the way they are nowadays, lacrosse is getting a lot more publicity, especially with, the PLL in the summer with ESPN. I arguably think the next two best weekends of college lacrosse coming up with the quarterfinals and then obviously Memorial Day weekend, which is one of the best traditions in sports. But, kind of kicking us off here, coming off a hot, Sweet 16 round of lacrosse where it's going to lead us into, Penn versus Rutgers is that first game on Saturday at noon. These teams haven't played in almost, back since 1986. Rutgers got the better edge of them, which kind of is wild to think with Penn being so dominant as of late as well as Rutgers. When I'm looking at this game, I just think of how tested Penn has been this year with multiple overtime games to, Richmond, St. Joe's, our alma mater. Wow. Start off early. Duke, they lost to Princeton in overtime, but, Sam Hanley is the guy that drives that bus for that team. And I think you got to stop him in order to win this game.
Yeah, Sam Hanley, I think Ivy League Player of the Year this year, although I think that was a bit of a snub for our boy Matt Brando up in New Haven. But this is definitely a battle-tested team, like you mentioned. The thing is, everybody's been pumping the Ivies this year, and I get it. They went through a gauntlet of a schedule. They beat each other up. They were beaten up on the ACC. But, the Big Ten is the conference to be in, I feel like, the past couple of years. If you want to play big boy lacrosse, you play in the Big Ten. And I don't think it's going to be – Penn isn't going to go into this game and, dust it up like they did against Richmond and come out on top with an overtime game. If they don't come out to play, they're going to get their asses handed to them. I think, when you look at Penn, you think of Sam Hanley, you think of these kind of a bigger midfield. You've got Gregor coming out of the attack line, kind of a nice lefty shooter there. But yeah, I just feel like when you look at Rutgers, they're big boys too. So they're going to be able to match up well with this team. And that's why I'm taking Rutgers. Rutgers opened up at +1.5. And I say, you know what? I'm hammering that.
That's where you got it.
If you look at it now, it's -1.5. The line is completely switched. So I just think Rutgers is a bigger team. I think Penn is going to come out, maybe a little.
They're both looking though to get to championship weekend. Rutgers couldn't do it last year, and then Penn has had losses in round 1 and round 2, where they've been clear favorites. I mean, like, talk about a bigger game, though, for Mitch Berturlo. Like, you're playing your old team, like, in a neutral site. These guys know you better than anybody. But, like, something about Rutgers, man. Like, they got a good alumni presence. I think they have the better goalie in Kirst. Face-offs right now, looking at it, they're pretty even. I know, Jamie Zuzi, went kind of toe-to-toe with Zach Cole, who's the first-team All-American. So I might lean that way. But, again, I personally took Penn 1.5. I just think Penn went through a tough one last week, kind of maybe a wake-up call. And then you had Rutgers kind of cakewalk and, walk Harvard off the field. So I just think Penn is the better team, and you're going to give them almost, 1.5. Like, it's kind of free money.
I mean, that's what I thought about Rutgers, and that's why I took them. But I'm going to try and redeem myself here after completely fumbling over myself. Love how you brought up the specialist battle, because I feel like that's something that's underrated about lacrosse, and it's underrated about a lot of people who are looking at these games. The specialists are going to be able to change the game and be sometimes a bigger impact on the offense and the defenses. When you think about when we used to go up against Kenny Massa or Kevin Massa, whichever one of those, I feel like we played both of those brothers, and Gunnar Walter Bryant, like, those guys were the reasons they won games. So if you look at the specialist battle, I agree with you. You got Colin Kirsten net. He's the favorite there. Like, he's the better goalie.
Birkinshaw is actually at 57%, which I thought was kind of high. But
I feel like that is pretty high, but I just don't love his style. I just don't love his style. I think Colin is just like, he's just a solid, like, consistent goalie, and he's gonna make the saves that he's supposed to make. He's gonna steal the ones he's not supposed to make.
If he's on, though, that's a long day if you're a Quakers fan, though.
Absolutely.
Like, he got hot last year against Carolina, and I know they lost that game, but he pretty much kind of kept them in it throughout the entire time. But then, like, we're watching the games last week, and, like, Ross Scott just goes off for 8 goals. Like, is he going to do that again? Like, I don't know. I mean, you got, Knobloch down there as well, who, first team all Big Ten guy. But I don't know. I just think the Quakers just have something where, there's a lot of Ivies in this tournament still. They kind of want to just solidify themselves, and, it'd be unreal if they had an all Ivy Final Four. That'd be gross. But, they got to get over the hump here. But overall, man, I just think it's going to be interesting, even with, Penn's, best cover guy, Peter Blake's going to have his hands full against the Rutgers attack, because they're just so deep there. But, I mean, if we transition now to even Yale versus Princeton, Yale coming off what we both were there up in New Haven versus St. Joe's, which was, such a great step in the right direction for the program as a whole. I thought we had them, but, sometimes
it just is what it is. It is what it is. You got to be proud of the alumni who came out. I'm patting myself on the back here, but you got to be proud of the alumni coming out like that. You got to be proud of the team. The way that St. Joe's has battled from the second that T-Ray stepped on campus there on Hawk Hill to where they are now, probably obviously the best team that St. Joe's has ever had this year. But, you just wonder what is going to happen from here. And I only see good things coming.
And even like a team like Yale, where, we didn't know this going into the game, but they have so many freshmen that play. So many freshmen that make an impact. Like, their attack was on fire against St. Joe's. Like, any mistake that the Hawks made was just a goal immediately for Yale the other way. And even just, rolling it into Princeton too, they kind of had a dominant performance against BU, never really let them get in the game. Now, I personally only know a few players on Princeton. I'm not too familiar, and obviously just watching Yale last week, you feel like you know Yale better. But, man, like Matt Brandau, I mean, if he showed why he was a first-team All-American attackman and why he almost has 100 points, you shut him down, but there's going to be other guys that step up.
There's always other guys, especially on this Yale team. I feel like this Yale team always has, and, you think about Ben Reeves back in the day, who was like the quarterback of that offense. But I feel like, Brandau is kind of that guy, but they've got a ton of people that can initiate the offense and score for you. I think going back to those freshmen, that's the thing that worries me. Like, I don't know. This is the one game it was tough for me to pick. Like, I've been high on Princeton this year. I think they have a great goalie. I think they have experience all over the field. But it's hard to go against Andy Shea, a great coaching staff in Yale. And when I think about it, they might have some veteran leaders in Princeton, but they also haven't played for 2 years. This is their first season off of COVID ×2. So
both these teams also coming off a home atmosphere, like, got to be a little bit easier there. But even I thought right when I saw this matchup was, like you said earlier with the specialists, like the face-off guys for Yale were, I mean, if they don't switch it up, Zach Cole wins the fourth quarter, like we might be here having a St. Joe's parade.
Absolutely.
Prepping, talking about the Hawks versus Princeton. But like, they threw in 3 guys, went 40%, which at the time you don't think that's bad. If they went 30, they lose that game.
Yeah.
And even, Parquette stepped up big. He's 52% on the year coming in here. So, I mean, there's going to be plenty of guys that are playing, also all those LSM, like that number 10 LSM kid, he was all over the field nonstop.
All over the field.
Their defense too, like they do not slide to you. And maybe that wasn't just against St. Joe's, but like you have Chris Fake, you have that 36 kid who, he went toe to toe with Levi and probably the most physical player you're going to play the rest of the year. So, I mean, maybe I'm biased from watching the Yale game so clearly, but Princeton's got Chris Brown, who's their kind of, their leader, over 80 points on the year. But I mean, Yale got the first matchup 14-12 at home though.
And that was a game where it was a toe-to-toe matchup. It was a toe-to-toe matchup. And I think Yale pulled away late at the end, same thing they kind of did against St. Joe's. So going back to the experience thing, like when you think there's going to be so many of these freshmen, they're going to make freshman mistakes. And then you go back to it and it's really their coaching is just, top tier, and it's going to be the difference maker in some of these games. So are you taking Yale or are you taking Princeton? See, I have the line at 1.5 and I'm thinking Yale plus 1.5, but I've been back and forth on this one.
I actually just took the Yale money line, just straight up.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna be a Bulldog this weekend. Because it also looks good for us too. I mean, it bumps up St. Joe's. Hey, we took this team to a 2-goal game in the fourth quarter, and you almost think it's like Princeton just kind of had a cakewalk, not too tough, like probably the second easiest game of the weekend, compared to Maryland, Vermont. But Yale just was like, oh shit, like we can't lose at home to this team. They almost seem a lot more focused now. I don't know. I think it's going to be a shootout because St. Joe's has good offense. They can hang 16 on them. Like, you can score on Yale, but if their defense slides this time around and plays it different, but I don't know.
See how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. All right, let's get into the next one.
Yeah.
Cornell versus Delaware. I know for a fact that you're on the big red train, but I think I'm on the big blue train. I think the Blue Hens are going to come out and shock the world against Cornell. I just think that you see how that attack line plays together at Delaware. A
lot of Jersey guys in this game.
A lot of Jersey guys repping Jersey. And to start us off on the BTB pod, did you see Robinson's goal last week? He throws a BTB shot on net when what were they, down 1 or tied?
They were down 2. That sparked the run.
Down 2.
He was
behind
fading,
the back.
He was like fading towards the line and just like threw it really soft too. Like it wasn't like it was coming in like a Miles Thompson back in the day where you just gun it.
Yeah.
But dude,
that's also 8 yards. I think he was at 8 yards cutting and he just threw it and it hit the top right corner. I mean, if this is going to be the BTB pod, then I'm taking Delaware and that's it. Like,
I know the last game we're going to talk about is kind of like the matchup that everyone's kind of waiting for. But like Cornell, what worries me about the Big Red is like, you're watching the game on Sunday and first of all, that rain delay was pretty annoying. You had to rewatch your team lose. So like, you're like,
that's because it was the game of the week. It was such great entertainment. They had to put the Hawks back up on TV again.
Right. And seeing just Cornell go down 5-0 or 4-0, I was like, all right, this is, it's kind of tough. Like they can't even get the ball. But then me doing my research, crunching the numbers, pretty much Yale has been outscored, I think, every first quarter this year, or like I think they're -7 in the first quarter, but then they're plus 30 now in the next.
Is this Cornell?
Yeah. So
Cornell.
I think Cornell, like their attack is unreal though. Like you have CJ Kurse putting up 7 goals last week, setting a record. Then you have Mike Malone, the other kid, who's kind of the speedster, a little bit smaller. And then you have I didn't write his name down.
It starts with a P.
Yeah. We got that dude on there.
That guy. Yeah. No, doesn't that guy have like 60 goals on the year or something like that?
I'm gonna go to research on this one.
Pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, well, while you're pulling that up, this is what I'm gonna say about Delaware. I think the CAA has always been one of those tough leagues, kind of like the Patriot League, where they just beat up on each other. We got our boy Charles up at Fairfield, Charles Junta, Coach Junta. Shout out to Coach
Don Piatelli.
That's his name. I knew it was a P.
41. Yeah, he's at 72 points. Yeah.
Okay, so back to the CAA. Like they just beat up on each other, and it's a tough league. And the team that comes out of that league is always competing. I think it might have been a little chip on their shoulder that they had to be in the play-in game.
Yeah, even though they beat St. Joe's earlier this year, they absolutely dominated Robert Morris from the first face-off till the end. Like they had their backup scoring pretty disrespectful. Like I think one of their backups had a BTB too, which really just like
BTB.
Yeah, and that's a testament to us just growing that brand. But the thing with Cornell, with those three, it's like if they're not having if all three of them are off, which you don't really see often, like can they score? And UDEL, they always have a scrappy group of guys, pretty standard, like you said, with the CAA. To get out of there alive is pretty tough because Drexel's either up or down. Fairfield's on the rise with a strong defensive backbone. I think they just had all 3 freshmen start. But even with, looking at that game more so, Matt Sadler, that defender for Cornell with the rolled up sleeves, looking like Kevin Albert back in the day at Immaculata.
I didn't know he went with the Suns Out, Guns Out look.
Yeah, he had his sleeves rolled up, but I don't know who he covers. Like, do you put him on Beta? Do you put him on, the other two? Because the other 2 kids can score too.
Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a matchup. I think when you look at another underrated thing about this matchup is the coaching staffs. DeLuca is an ex-Cornell coach.
Game. This might be the revenge game, of the week, because there are a couple, back and forth with people, but I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
DeLuca, the ex-Cornell coach, going up against his predecessor and Connor Busick. Listen, I think Connor Busick is obviously a great lacrosse player, being in the PLL, and his lacrosse career has been incredible. You think of him as a coach, and obviously he's got this Cornell team being as strong as they've ever been. I just think that from that perspective, the coaching advantage goes to Delaware. And then for me, the biggest reason why I'm not taking Cornell is just because I've been burned on them this year. Going back to like my 46-50 record in betting college lacrosse this season, I can't tell you how many times that was taking Cornell on the spread, and they just beating me up constantly. So I'm not going to get burnt again. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. I'm not going anywhere near them.
Yeah, I took Cornell -2.5. I just feel good about this team. But what sucks about this game, and it's the nightcap, is these are the only 2 face-off guys under 50% left. So like Peterakis is 48%, and then Premtaj, I want to say it is 49. And that, you got.
It's hard to get to that point in the season going less than 50% at the X.
You got to like your chances, though, being like, all right, this kid's not the best. Or it's like you're not going against any All-Americans. Like the next game we got, like the Mamba, like the monster game is just an all-star game. But kind of, this game isn't, juicing me up too much, but I'll say, Cornell -2.5, and can UDEL rally back after a huge program win? Like those guys definitely hit it hard. Maybe Sunday night in Newark, Delaware.
I would imagine so. I don't know
if there's to do down there, but I think they just hit it hard.
Hey, I heard it's a huge party school, so maybe we need to take a trip down there once upon a time.
Yeah, I'd do a game day there. But the All-Star game, Maryland UVA, national championship rematch. Maryland routed Vermont just about, this is coming out either Thursday or Friday. So, this past weekend they routed Vermont. And then UVA went up to Brown in a hostile environment, sold out.
Hostile.
Bruno Nation stood up, and they got Lars Tiffany got his revenge, win on a 17-10 easy win there. I know before the show, T, we were talking, it's like one of those games where if you can just name more guys on the team, that's the team that you think is going to win. And I mean, Maryland, every guy on the offense, their defense led by Makar. They have a solid face-off crew as well, and they're just a machine. Like team comes in, smash. Next team comes in, smash. Team comes in, smash.
This is obviously a all-time Maryland team, and this might be one of the greatest teams in lacrosse history. They could finish the season undefeated, and I would not be shocked. Like you said, they've got stars from one side of the field all the way to the other side of the field, and they are making plays every place in between. The reason now, to be honest with you, I think Lars and the Wahoos are going to shock the world. I think it's going to be a dogfight. And you look at the matchup earlier in the season, it was at a neutral field at Audi Field in DC. You don't know who's really showing up to that game. I'm sure there were plenty of injuries to go around. But right now, Virginia's
healthy. That game was, T, for reference, that game was on March 19th. So almost, 2 months ago.
3 months ago? Yeah, that's an eternity.
2 months ago, you're a totally different team. 2 months ago, you're a different team.
Exactly.
And, yeah, I mean, even with that, you just go down the roster, though, of Maryland, and, we'll get to Virginia next, but, Wisnauskas, Keegan Kahn, Donville, Malver, DeMayo, Kyle Long, and you get down to even Owen Murphy, all those dudes have 30-plus points on the year. Wisnauskas is kind of just here's Jared Bernhardt, but not as fast and as quick, but he does everything almost even better.
Might be a better shooter.
I mean, he's lighting it up. Number one, that's also one of the coolest things is when your best player just wears number one.
I love the 1 for Maryland. I always used to love the 11 at Syracuse. Maybe we can get a 41 for St. Joe's. We never know.
We have a Shane transition. It was me. It was Fable. We need another Shane in there. And
whoever's the incoming freshman at St. Joe's whose name is Shane, you're wearing 41. Done. Next.
Done.
Don't even try and lobby for it. It's coming. Don't try and go for a new number. It just is what it is.
And even, looking at you just look at Maryland's schedule and, 21, 15 goals, 24, 23, 19, 16, 17, 19, 21.
So are they averaging above 16 to 17 goals a game right now?
This is like a high school girls basketball game. They're putting up points. They're gonna score, and their face-off dude is close to 60% now. So they get they start playing make it take it. It could be bad.
It could be bad,
but not so fast. That's why we played the game. Virginia has, I don't know, ever hear of them? Connor Schellenberger, Matt Moore.
Matt Moore might be the most underrated player in college lacrosse, period. No questions asked.
Dude, he has the most points at Virginia.
I don't think people talk about him enough.
Honorable mention, All-American. He was just the 4th pick in the draft. What are we talking about?
And the fact that Schellenberger is the quarterback to that offense, and you still have Matt Moore on the field, who could do everything and then some. I feel like the ACC everybody who's an ACC fan on Twitter, yeah, I get it. You wish Notre Dame was in the tournament. You think you're, you think you're God's gift to the world. So the ACC needs to be in the tournament all the time.
We're so good. We don't even need a conference tournament. Well,
so listen, if you're not going to take care of business out of the conference, then you don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. The Wahoos took care of business. They're clearly the best team in the ACC, and that's why they're in this position. I think the committee really did Maryland dirty giving a matchup with UVA in the quarterfinals. Like, if anything, this is the championship game. This really is going to tell us who's going to win the whole thing.
If you would have told us at the start of the year that Maryland and Virginia, only one of those teams could make it to the Final Four, I would have been like, was there a team crash? Like, did the whole team get COVID? Like, because they're
what happened to the rest of the tournament? Like,
dude, they're also the reason why I'm taking UVA. This team has back-to-back national championships. In any other sport, if you said the team that just won if you said the Warriors are playing for their three-peat, you're like, oh yeah, I'm taking the Warriors. Like, this team's done it. They just beat Maryland last year. Most of the guys on this team, almost the whole defense, they scored goals. They got Petey LaSalle back. Like, dude, I don't know.
I think one thing, speaking of Petey LaSalle, and we talk about how good the Maryland faceoff guy is. He's been incredible this year. Something that will always stick in my head when I watch UVA games is when Paul Carcaterra pulls out the Petey LaSalle. Like, if I'm in a dust up behind Larry's cheesesteaks outside of Hawk Hill, I want Petey LaSalle in there. That guy is going to show up when it matters, and I think he's going to neutralize how good the Maryland faceoff guy has been this year. What was his name? Wiedemeyer?
Luke Weirman. He's at 66%, but there's just so many. There's just so many games where you think, like, all right, and it goes across. It's every team. Like, you throw in your lower level Division I teams or your mid majors, and you're a top tier team. Like, you should mop them up there.
Is our boy Tyler Barbarich still coaching the faceoff guys at Maryland?
He stepped down.
Oh, but so hey, we can't give him credit on this one.
Can't give him credit, but even like the guys on the defense for Maryland, like Brett Makar, like you don't even have to slide to him. I think that's the matchup of the week. If he covers Matt Moore or Schellenberger, and they're gonna score or they're gonna get points. He can't go. He can't hold them to 0-0, even though Brett's that good.
Brett is that good, and I don't want to talk badly on our guy Brett, but that is going to be a hell of a matchup, to say the least. Yeah. I don't think he's going to hold Schellenberger or Matt Moore scoreless. I think that's a tall task, and if he does, like, put him in the rafters, retire his number. I don't want that anymore. But I just think this UVA team is going to come out ready to play. I think they got embarrassed by them the first time, and I don't think it's going to happen again. And you know what? Drop the mic. That's it. 4.5. We're done.
And we're both taking it. So we have some we agree, 2 we disagree. Yale, Princeton, it's not really the matchup. I'm pumped that there's a game on, but I think it's going to be that Maryland game at noon on Sunday is going to be like, all right, like, let me get seated here. Let me, get the Uber Eats going, get everything kind of locked in. And then you're going to be able to just enjoy some good lacrosse. Dude, I also realized I don't even have ESPNU, so I have to buy that, I think, this weekend.
What do you mean you don't have ESPNU? What are you, rocking YouTube TV?
No, I didn't have the cable package. So I'm like, kind of like, I might go to a bar and like, hey, you got to put the game on.
What, do you live under a rock?
I thought it came with my cable package.
So this is why you wanted to go to New Haven so badly last week, was because you knew you were going to be able to watch the games anyway.
Or just get trapped at Charles's house and, you're not allowed to leave. But we will have, try to transition to that. It's like we're going to have some guys on who we've played with, hopefully some coaches, some former players. Like, if Yale makes a run here, maybe we get our former, teammate Eric Scott on the pod, former chaos midfielder. If those bums from Denver would make the playoff again, you could maybe get a guy like Christian Bergdorf in here. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be pretty short. I don't see us going for more than like an hour on anything, unless it's like St. Joe's wins a national championship, and
we'll just live stream straight from Memorial Day weekend wherever it's being held, and you're just going to hear from us the entire time from 8 a.m. when we start the tailgate to 2 a.m. when Shane is upside down in the garbage can. One thing I'm going to say is, if God forbid anybody's still listening to us at this point, because we've watched it so many times and this is our first time talking to each other, for this podcast, we appreciate you. It's going to get better. If you can't notice, I'm in a hotel room in California and Shane is at his apartment in Philadelphia. So we had to set up a Zoom. We're 3 hours apart. It's a little bit hectic right now. I think in the future, maybe we get a nice little podcast set up in the basement.
Little studio.
Little LED lights, little ambiance. Maybe we put like a Native American stick in the background because, we play lacrosse. And
maybe we get some good lighting and we can just really get this in here.
Yeah. And also maybe next time we leave the hats, because if we're doing a podcast that's, bald to bald, we can't be wearing hats. So I'm going to take that off. I agree. No must.
I agree. But we appreciate you guys listening. We're going to probably put this first one up on YouTube, and we'll figure out the whole, Apple Pod, Spotify, all that stuff. But predominantly going to be YouTube, maybe a Twitter page coming soon. We might have to hire, an intern or, look for some volunteer work. But
I think we might be able to handle the Twitter.
We can handle it.
For the amount of time that the two of us are on Twitter, shoot us a follow. But for the amount of time that we're on Twitter, I think we'll be all right.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy the games this weekend, T. I'm sure we'll be texting. We'll have our group chat going. But thank you, everyone. Like this video. Helps with the algorithm. Boost it up here. Let's go, baby.
Pump it up. You got to pump it up. No, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Cheers, everybody.
Peace.